Hey everyone, Rafi again from Triada Networks. Today I want to talk a little bit about continuing to secure your Office 365 environment. Last video we talked about the cyber kill train. We looked at an example of how a business email compromise takes place, the steps along the way that you could potentially prevent or detect the attack in progress so that you can take action. And today we're going to go a little bit deeper in some of those functions, and you'll see how a lot of these that I list out today really fit into nicely to set yourself up for success when it comes to dealing with a potential compromise or a potential illegal access. So the number one thing that everyone talks about is multi-factor authentication. What does this mean? This means that when you're logging into your account, that besides your username and password, there's another factor that is used. That could be a biometric, it could be a token, it could be a code. The ones we typically see with Microsoft Office 365 would be something like a 6-digit code that comes up on your phone, or a 7-digit code that comes up on your phone that changes every 30 seconds. It could be a push notification like this one. This one is actually a different system, but it basically pops up and says, "Is this you?" You say yes. Maybe you add another number to it. Or something like a physical token like this, a YubiKey. So we've been increasingly using these YubiKeys because they provide a more effective security mechanism, but it also gets around the idea that if somebody does not want to install software on their personal device, it still lets them access their corporate resources from their business machine. So by providing this additional factor, when someone tries to log in under your account, even if they have your password, they can't get in without this second factor if they're logging in from a different location or a different device. Is it foolproof? No. Nothing is 100%, but it's a great way to identify, to reduce the attack surface in a big way. The second part that I'd like to talk about is training your employees, including yourself, making sure that you're aware of the security risks that are specifically the kinds of companies or kinds of groups that are attacking your kind of firm. If you're in financial services, look at those folks that are making efforts to attack financial services companies, not the specific group, but more likely the tactics that are being used. That's going to give you a great idea about how you can protect yourself, but also to be able to identify the general stuff like, is somebody impersonating your CEO or your HR director? Has somebody set up a domain that looks like yours that's trying to fool your client, your employees from that they're someone else. So there's a number of things that you can do from a security awareness point of view, and it's very easy to get kind of like a mundane video that you watch and you have to take a quiz. But it's important to keep those not only up to date, keep them short, keep them frequent. That way, folks don't become completely numb to those trainings. The next is the concept of of lease privilege. It's basically you give access to your employee what they need to do their job. This includes yourself. I use myself as an example. Although part of my responsibility as owner of the company is I also administer our Office 365 environment. So when I set up my Office 365 environment, I signed in with my initial email address that I created. However, that's also the main email address I use for the business. I don't want these two things in the same account. So what I've done is I've created a separate account for administrative purposes, and I've removed administrative access from my main daily driver account. So if, God forbid, something happens and I get fooled and I get phished, that person does not have access to our entire environment. They may only have access to my mailbox. So it gives you it reduces the blast surface, but also minimizes the risk that your most privileged accounts have access or could be phished. That's one aspect of lease privilege. The other aspect of lease privilege is on the data side. So if you have employees that don't need access to your financial systems or don't need access to your HR documents, don't provide it. Make sure that each group has their own bucket to collaborate. There's going to be some overlap, but this way, again, if somebody gets access to a person in HR, they don't necessarily now have access to all your data that's in your finance or accounting group. So that's the concept of least privilege, making sure that you're only given access to the things that they need to be able to do. The other thing I want to talk about, and a couple of these fall into this bucket, is using the tools that you have. I'm guilty of this in terms of shiny objects. I love tools. I love buying tools. I love installing tools. I love tinkering with them. However, we underutilize the tools that we already are paying for. And many times in Office 365, especially if you have certain licensing schemes, you've already got access to a lot of protections kind of built out of the box without having to spend a lot more money. You just need somebody to be able to understand the tool and make those changes. So go in there, look at what's available. One of those is Microsoft Defender for Office 365. It's got a lot of rules in there to help you identify phishing, help you identify the impersonation issue that we talked about in the security awareness part, and many other tools. So look in Microsoft Defender, make sure that that's tweaked out as much as you can before you start adding third-party tools to that. Along those same lines, Microsoft also provides a platform called Purview. Microsoft Purview Information Protection is there to protect sensitive data and sensitive information. So you can create rules around saying, hey, we don't want to send out social security numbers to third parties. We don't want to leak credit card numbers accidentally. So you can create rules around this to alert you and even stop this kind of information potentially being shared out. So that's Microsoft Purview. Another detail within Office 365 is the ability to disable auto forwarding. If you remember from the last video, if you saw it, if not, you can search back in your feed. But attacker, when they get access to a mailbox, one of the first things they do is either create an auto forwarding rule in the mailbox or create rules to move mail outside of the inbox to another folder that they'll access and you don't notice. So disabling auto forwarding takes away a big chunk of that potential issue. Plus, it also prevents from inadvertently sending email to an external address that's outside of your ability to review. Next, protect your devices. Make sure that the devices that are accessing Office 365 are secure. You can actually set policies around this, saying that you can't have a jailbroken iPhone, or you can't. You have to have the latest software loaded on it, or you can only access it from known secure locations or devices that have been allowed by the company to use. So there's lots of different tools that you can use to really tighten the security around this. Now, you work for a nonprofit, you have people using shared devices. Maybe that's not as practical for you. However, it's an idea. It's one of the ideas that's available to you in order to make your environment more secure. Look at your security policies. These are your written policies as well as the implemented policies in your environment. Make sure that you regularly review them. I would say at least once a year, maybe twice, to make sure that they still make sense to you, they still make sense to your business process, and that you follow them. Ultimately, a security policy that you follow can potentially bring you safe harbor against if an incident happens that you potentially get legal action. If you have done all the things, you have an MFA policy and you have multi-factor properly implemented, but someone still is able to get in, for example, bypassing credentials, that having a security policy in place can potentially give you some safe harbor against I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just those are the things that we like to put in place. Within Microsoft 365 is a unified audit log. This is all the actions that take place in your Office 365 environment go into this audit log. It's typically about a 30-day log, but most even third-party systems need you to turn on the audit log because this is where they're pulling information from. And this gives you a way for you to track and investigate actions taken in your organization. So if something happens, there is an incident, that you can be able to review it and identify what actually took place. And many times this information can also be used in the next action item, which is to enable alert policies. If you have something in place that alerts you that a forwarding has been taking place, or a rule has been created, or an employee is logging in from a location that they're not expected to, then by having those alerts in place, maybe you didn't prevent the actual initial access, but now you're able to detect a nefarious activity and can block it in its tracks. So these are the 10 things that we look to right out of the gate when we work with clients and we take over their environments. And these are some of these things you can do yourself right out of the box with just a little bit of training, watching a few YouTube videos, and figuring it out. But of course, if you need any assistance on putting this stuff together for you, or you'd like somebody, a third party, to come in and review if you've done these things as best as possible and give you advice, feel free to reach out to us. Our website is triadanet.com. Our phone number is right there as well. Feel free to call us, email us, write us, or leave a comment below. Thank you.